Hello anybody, and thanks for tuning in to Monday Morning Handicapping. This is a new segment that I'm going to try out. It's my speed run of the Belmont Stakes. So just a couple of key points before I get started. This is going to be unscripted and freeform due to time constraints. I wasn't able to put together a big race breakdown like I had done previously for the Kentucky Derby or the Preakness Stakes. So I'm going to do something a little bit different. In terms of what I'm going to be presenting at the end, I'm not really going to have any wagering advice or who I think's going to win or how I think someone should play the race. I already have some rooting interest with journalism. If you watch my last video on the Preakness, after his performance, he stamped his way into becoming my favorite racehorse of all time at this point, with my favorite race that I've ever seen live in the Preakness. I was just astounded with his ability to bounce back from all the trouble he encountered, so I will be rooting for journalism all the way. But other than that, this is not essentially how to play the race. But what I'm going to do is run through the past performances, also known as the racing form, gain a sense of how the race might play out. I'm going to talk through my personal thought process as I read the racing form, just say it out loud and share it with everybody. And for experienced handicappers, people that kind of know how to read the racing form on their own, they're probably not going to get too much out of this. However, they will glean what I'm looking at and maybe what other players that have as much experience as me are looking at. And if they want to be contrarian to my ultimate pick in the end, then they know where to fade and what I'm overlooking or underlooking, so to speak. For some beginning handicappers, some people new to the game, you'll just hear me talk out my thought process, what I look at, and how I compare runners all together. So I hope that there's something in it for everybody. So let's go ahead and take a look at the racing form now, and I'm just basically going to talk through everything that I'm looking at as I read the racing form. So here it is, Saturday at Saratoga track. Of course, the Belmont Stakes is typically at Belmont, but they're doing some renovation, so this race is now being run at Saratoga. Over a distance of 1.25 miles instead of the traditional 1.5 miles. It's race number 13 on the day, going a distance of 1.25 miles. You can see the diagram in the top right. Start here, they'll run around 2 turns and then finish further than where they started in terms of where they are on the stretch. So it's the race for 3-year-old, as many of you know, and it's the third leg of the Triple Crown. Of course, there is no Triple Crown champion up for grabs because Sovereignty, who won the Kentucky Derby, opted to skip the Preakness, and the second place finisher in the Kentucky Derby, Journalism, won the Preakness. So now this is sort of their rubber match where they're going to be facing each other yet again. So if we just scroll down to number 1 Hill Road, 10-1 on the morning line. Quickly glance down at his typical running style. He likes to be a little bit further back in the pack early. You can see he's 8th early, 7th, 6th as the race goes on. Before that, 6th, 6th, 7th, 3rd, 3rd. So obviously likes to get out of the gate a little bit slower, trail the pack, and make his run later. He's coming off of a win in the Grade 3 Peter Pan after a March to May, March, April, May. So about a 2-month layoff. Look at the fractions, 48 to 112, so that's 24 and change, to 137, 24 and change, to 49, just over 12 seconds, so about 24 and change it again. So he's keeping his speed as he's passing horses later in the race. This distance was 1.1 miles, so he's going to have to go further, but he's keeping his speed passing horses. So I don't think the stretch out is a big concern for this horse. Second off of a layoff and had a good performance coming back. In fact, a top speed figure 94 right here. We look over to the right, a stumbled start, so he didn't even get out of the gate that well, but still had a good finish, was able to make up ground after not having a very great start. We can see Hill Road over here first. Beat a horse named McAfee and Captain Cook. Captain Cook was once on the Kentucky Derby trail. I actually did a Kentucky Derby prospect video on him. He didn't really pan out, so I don't think he's Kentucky Derby caliber like some of the other horses in this race, but he should beat him. He did beat him. Can he improve? I think he can. Irad Ortiz aboard. That's a good jockey. Chad Brown trainer. That's a good trainer. 24% win rate. Quality Road, Lemon Drop Kid. Quality Road, of course, is the sire, so the father of this horse. Lemon Drop Kid is the father of the dam or mother. I don't know a ton about these horses in terms of pedigree. I think they're somewhat longer distance runners. I wouldn't say I'm a professional at the pedigree side of things, so I'll look down here at the distance Tomlinson rating. A 350, that's solid, so I don't think the distance will bother him. He's a closing type, and this is his furthest race yet, so I think he can handle the distance. My last video where I broke down who's winning the Belmont, the Peter Pan is a very productive prep race for the Belmont, so timing wise I think that this makes sense. The horse could improve. He is getting a rail trip, so he should save ground and should be coming late. Is he good enough to pass the other runners? We'll have to compare to the other runners before we make a conclusion on this horse. Number 2, Sovereignty, 2-1 on the morning line. Of course, a Kentucky Derby winner, trained by Belmont, as many of us already know. 17% trainer, solid trainer. He has a reputation for spotting his horses very well. Of course, he won the Kentucky Derby, opted to skip the Preakness, and is now in the Belmont. And in my Belmont Stakes breakdown video, the horses that ran in the Derby, whether they won or not, skipped the Preakness and then came back in the Belmont, seemed to do well. So the Kentucky Derby is a good prep race as well. This last race was his best Beyer speed figure ever with a 104. It was at Churchill Downs on a sloppy track, and if we go back down, he's ran at Churchill Downs before. He won there. That was his best finish to date at the time, not his best speed figure, but he obviously seems to at least not dislike the Churchill Downs track. If we look at his run lines, definitely a closing type again. In the Derby, he was 16th early, 16th, and just came closing to 4th, first, and separated himself from the second place horse. Here, if we look to the right, it was Journalism and Baza. You can tell that they're in this race because of the bold letters over here. Clipped Heels early on in the race, was wide around the turns and still came with that closing kick. Passed enough horses to win, some talented horses with that. My big thought with Sovereignty is, does he prefer Churchill Downs? The sloppy track maybe helped him more than it hurt Journalism, or vice versa. Maybe it hurt Journalism more than it helped Sovereignty. But either way, the Kentucky Derby certainly invites a really fast pace, which helps a horse with this running style. Now, the Belmont Stakes, again, is 1.25 miles this time around, and if it's a dry track, I just wonder if this horse will be able to pass some of those other runners who might not be as tired from going so fast early like they did in the Kentucky Derby. Either way, I think Sovereignty will be closing, but will those other horses in front of him be able to outlast them with that little bit more speed favoring track? This horse always puts in a good run. His worst finish was his debut race, first ever race, but he did close well and has just been improving ever since. Horses by Into Mischief, who's been very solid on the Kentucky Derby trail. Bernardini mare, and I did a Kentucky Derby prospect on Sovereignty as well, if you want to go check out that video, breaking down his pedigree a little bit more. But certainly a closer. You know what you're going to get out of this horse. My big question with him is the Churchill Downs track. Does he just like that track the most? And the sloppy track with the fast pace, did that help him get past Journalism and Baeza in the Kentucky Derby? Definitely a contender. Number 3, Rodriguez, 6-1 on the morning line. If we look down at his run lines, you can see 1s, 2s, a couple of 3s in there. So this horse definitely likes to be forwardly placed. Trained by Bob Baffert, who is known to train horses very fast. They have speed and they can carry it over a good distance. Now, this horse was scratched out of the Kentucky Derby and the Preakness, so I have some concerns about his overall health. This horse is coming off of a 2-month layoff, hasn't raced in 2 months, so a little bit longer of a break. His wins are when he typically gets a relatively easy lead. So you can see down here when he won by 7 lengths, he was in head by a half length early and then just sort of pulled away and wasn't contested throughout the rest of the race. His last win, he was not really contested. Again, half length ahead, then just pulled away easily. No one came and got him. He did face Journalism, and Journalism beat him 2 races back. He faced Baeza 4 races back, and he got the best of Baeza, but that was when they were both pretty young. Rodriguez got the jump, was just out in front, and Baeza unable to pass him. This horse is going a further distance for the first time, 1.25 miles. I just want to know, will he be able to maintain that speed? We can see his fractions in his most recent race, 47.44 to the half, 111.25 to the 3/4, 135.68 to the mile. So a little over 25-second quarter here, with a 12.5 second finishing 1/8 of a mile. So certainly slowing down a little bit more than, say, the number 1 horse. However, the number 1 horse will be further back earlier on. So I wonder how much stamina Rodriguez is going to have off of that little bit of a layoff, 2-month layoff. He could come back really fresh and hold that stamina, or the longer distance in the layoff, maybe he needs a race or 2. His most recent workout was 5 furlongs with 1 minute flat. That's a solid time. 6th best out of 33 that day. Before that, at a 7 furlong work, the only horse to go that distance that day. So this horse seems to have some stamina and is training well. Going 7 furlongs in a workout, you don't see too often. The fact that this horse did have a 7 furlong workout tells me that this horse is probably fit. Now, will he get an easy lead like he did in his 2 wins? We'll have to find out by looking at other runners. This horse is by Authentic, who is out of Into Mischief with the Cherokee Run mare. Authentic, of course, I'm pretty sure was running routes, and I think maybe was even in the Derby, but Into Mischief has been a good producer for Derby horses, so I don't think the distance is an issue. However, on the Tomlinson rating, it's a 253. That's a little bit lower than I expect, so that's something to consider if we see especially some other horses that might challenge him for the lead. Number 4, Uncaged, 30-1 on the morning line, trained by Todd Pletcher. If we look at his run lines, definitely likes to come from behind. His one win, he was 6th early, then 5th, 2nd, and 1st, so closed. That was in a $100,000 optional claimer, so not even a graded stakes. Quite the jump up. This horse then ran in the Peter Pan after that, and of course we already saw another horse, Hill Road, the number 1 in that same race, and Hill Road beat this horse by 10 lengths. We can see right there. This horse even saved ground, so was not running further ground, was not running a further race. He was down on the rail, not going wide around turns, and was still beaten by 10 lengths by Hill Road. So right off the bat, I think that this horse is well below the talent quality of Hill Road. I can't really see anything that would tell me that this horse had a bad race. I could go back and watch replays. I'm not going to do that for this video, but the fact that his only win was in not even a stakes race and a maiden race tells me this horse might just be a notch below. Rapoli, of course, everyone's talking about it. He just may have had a case of FOMO, fear of missing out in this race, so just entered a horse. Now, when this horse did win, it was closing on a muddy track, and he ran some pretty solid fractions, especially early on, 23.85 to just under 23 to the next quarter mile. I believe this is a 1-turn mile at Aqueduct, so less turns to go around. They can maintain that speed, and then 25 and change to the next quarter mile, and then 25 and change to the last. So was fast early, but then slow down for the final quarters against softer company. I'm just not sure that this horse is going to be able to pass some of the graded stakes winners, such as Sovereignty and Journalism, that I know is in this race. Maybe gets up for 4th, but this horse is definitely a notch below. After being beat by Hill Road by 10, I'm not super interested in this horse in the 1st, 2nd, or 3rd place position. Number 5, Crudeau, 15-1 on the morning line. Johnny Velasquez, who's a jockey I can assume will give this horse a decent ride. Look at his run lines. Definitely likes to show some speed. Look over at the fractions, 23-46 to 111. I think that's pretty comparable to Rodriguez. Yeah, 111, 135.68 to the mile. This horse doesn't have a mile time. So if we go 111.82 to 144, that's a 32.2 second, final 3/16. Not super fast. This horse had an easy lead in both of its wins. I think this horse has no choice but to go for the lead. So now all of a sudden I'm thinking that there is going to be a speed duel on display between number 3 and number 5, and that could hinder both of their chances, especially because number 5 Crudeau is coming out of an ungraded stake, a restricted stakes race at that, so a limited number of entrants could even qualify to enter this race. This horse's sire is Justify, who is a Triple Crown winner. The dam is by Deputy Minister. Not quite sure about Deputy Minister, so look over at the Tomlinson, 329. Not bad. This horse is lightly raced, has improved every race, but certainly looks to want to take the lead, and I think Rodriguez is sort of in that same boat, probably does not want to be behind any runners, so I could see the 3 and the 5 both needing the lead, going out pretty quick, and just seeing what happens, who can outlast 2 at this point. So kind of interesting dynamic there. Number 6, Baza, 4-1 on the morning line, ridden by Flavian Pratt, another jockey you can trust to give a good solid ride. Last seen in the Kentucky Derby, if we look at the run lines, was well back in that race, but was breaking from the far outside post. 19 horses in that race, he was the far outside. So this horse doesn't typically gun for the lead, likes to be up close, but having 18 horses to his inside may have forced his hand a little bit to take back and find a good spot on the rail. The Kentucky Derby is a whole nother animal, so I will look at his previous races before that to see where he most likely wants to be, and it looks a little bit closer up. 5th early, 3rd early, 2nd early, 3rd early, 7th early on his debut. So I think this horse will want to be stalking those front runners depending on how fast they go, but probably not have more than 2 or 3 horses in front of him early. This horse closed very well in the Kentucky Derby, again on a sloppy track, going 1.25 miles, was just shy of Journalism for 2nd place, so this horse ended up finishing 3rd by a neck behind Journalism. Of course, Journalism was running a little bit faster earlier in the race. Maybe some of that kickback, the chaos of the Derby, and the sloppy track just got to Journalism. Or is Baza sort of the up-and-comer, which there's lots of buzz about Baza being a good bet here, especially at the 4-1 price. Baza is out of McKinsey, who I believe was a decent router. I'm not sure if he was on the Kentucky Derby trail, but I know the name. I think a Bob Baffert trainee. I'm not sure. I'd have to go back and look. But the dam is Puka, who has produced a Kentucky Derby winner and a Preakness Stakes winner in the last 2 years, I'm pretty sure, with Mage and perhaps Cisa Gray. Maybe I got that wrong, but Puka has been an outstanding producer in terms of talented runners in the Triple Crown series. Look over at the distance, pretty low Tomlinson rating, but I think this horse is sort of outrunning that Tomlinson rating, outrunning the pedigree just a little bit. You know he's going to come with the close. You know he's going to get a good ride by Flavian Pratt. Can he beat Journalism? He lost to Journalism 2 races ago, where he actually had the lead on Journalism by a length in the stretch where Journalism had some trouble. Journalism was still able to run him down there. Has this horse improved that much? Is the dry track going 1.25 miles going to help him that much? It's a tough question. Personally, I think Baza, even without looking at the rest of the form, and Journalism, those are my top 2 contenders. Honestly, I think they're going to be more forwardly placed on the Saratoga track. I think if it's a dry track, that helps both of them out much more than it helps out Sovereignty, who's going to be a late closer, and they're just going to be in front of Sovereignty earlier. And I think the dry track, less chaos and better trips will work out better for some of those horses that are just behind the front runners early. Number 7, Journalism, the horse I will be rooting for. 8-5 on the morning line. Umberto Rispoli riding yet again. This horse won the Preakness Stakes, and for anyone who hasn't watched that race yet, go watch it. The trouble he overcame was outstanding. I got vocal, and he recovered, and he went on to pass a horse that was 3, 4, maybe 5 lengths in front of him with about 12, 15 seconds left in the race, and ran him down. That horse was Gosker. Of course, Gosker is not a Kentucky Derby contender standout by any means, but the fact that Journalism was able to battle back from that, pick up his feet and run him down, just showed me that Journalism has the heart more so than Gosker is just not of the quality. The fact that Journalism, again, just overcame that trouble and ran him down was very impressive. I did not think he was going to get by him even after he recovered, and his turn of foot was just impressive. So if you haven't seen that Preakness Stakes replay, watch him. He's the number 2 horse. It was very impressive. Again, his run lines, he likes to sit a little bit off the pace, a little bit further back than the first pair of stalkers maybe. So he might be right behind Baza, follow Baza around, and then when Baza makes his move, Journalism will try to run him down yet again. I don't think the 1.25 miles is any problem. He's out of Curlin, who is the sire, who is known for the 1.25 miles or so distance. Out of an Uncle Mo mare. I did a Kentucky Derby prospect on this horse as well, so for more information on this horse and his background, you can go check out that video on my Kentucky Derby playlist. But this horse has proven at the distance, has proven that this horse has heart. Again, I don't think that this horse would be in the Belmont Stakes at all if this horse wasn't fit. He did not win the Derby. He won the Preakness, so there's no Triple Crown on the line. And by all accounts, everything I've heard on podcasts, Michael McCarthy thinks that Journalism is just full of energy and is coming into this race really well. It will be his 3rd race in 5 weeks, so I will not be surprised if this horse throws in a dud. Maybe he's just a little exhausted, and I will not be surprised if this horse wins by a length or so. Anything could happen with Journalism, but I'm trusting the trainer that this horse is happy and healthy, feeling good, so I expect a good run out of Journalism. Is Baza the horse that's improving and can outrun him, or a Sovereignty, the super horse that can overcome the dry track? Perhaps a little bit of a speed bias. Of course, the speed won't be as fast as the Kentucky Derby, I don't imagine, and everyone should get better trips. So I think a lot of these horses will have more stamina late in the race, and Sovereignty might have a hard time running them all down. Can't really knock Journalism. He's won a grade 2, a grade 1, second in a grade 1 Kentucky Derby, and won a grade 1. This horse is just on fire right now. Lots to like about this horse. Certainly the horse I'm going to be rooting for. Should be coming from about mid-pack, again, right behind Baza if I had to estimate. And we have our last horse, Heart of Honor, 30-1 on the morning line. If we look at his last race in the Preakness, his first race coming to America, he was running in the UAE, the United Arab Emirates, I believe. And first race in the United States, this horse was off the screen for most of the Preakness, but late in the race, as the race was finishing, this horse actually flashed some late kick and got up for 5th place, was 9th entering the stretch, and made up 5 lengths on the leaders and passed 4 other horses, was fractious, off slow out of the gate and wide, and just really came in with a late run. This horse is interesting to me just because of that late run. The trainer Jamie Osborne, I forget the horse, but he brought over another horse years ago and won a really big race. I think it was a Breeders' Cup race. I didn't do my research for it, but this trainer will bring over horses and do well over here. This horse is just interesting. If the race is really quick up front, those 2 front runners go very fast and maybe strings along Journalism and Baza, who I think will be up close pretty early. If those 2 front runners get Journalism and Baza to run a little too fast early, chasing them, then maybe Heart of Honor can actually clump up and get maybe 3rd or 4th. I don't expect this horse to run better than Hill Road, but if things really fall apart on the front end, I think maybe this horse second start in the United States with this jockey a little more experienced now, got 1 race under their belt in the United States. It would not shock me if this horse got up for fourth. It would surprise me a little if it got up for third, because I think some of the other horses in here, unless they really get gassed out going too fast early, I don't see this horse winning or running second. Third would be a little surprise. Fourth, I would feel a little vindicated thinking this horse could improve, but if this horse runs last or near last, I also won't be shocked. But if you go back and watch the Preakness, this horse did come with a little bit of finish late. I just think that maybe this horse makes its move a little early, gets out of the gate a little bit better, and just puts in an overall better run. This horse may be certainly underneath for me. So now if we just go back and recap, Hill Road, I think, will be near last early on, but should get a good rail trip and be coming late. The Peter Pan has been that good prep race. I could see this horse improving. Sovereignty is going to need the 3 and the 5 to really duel it out and make things go really fast up front. So all those horses that are closer to the leaders get tired late, and this horse can pick up the pieces. But I wonder if this horse just really benefited from the fast Kentucky Derby race. Again, he's going to need another race like that where everyone's going fast early and he can just pass some of the tiring horses, or he just improves and can just run them down regardless, even if they're going a little bit slower up front. But he might have to make his move a little bit early. So a very interesting. It's going to be all on the jockey here to see what's going on in front of him and make the move at the right time. Number 3, Rodriguez, one of the 2 main speeds in this race. I think he needs to lead. I think he's got to go. And these fractions are not outstanding to the point where Journalism and Baza can't keep up. I think they'll be pretty close. But if the 5 forces his hand, maybe they run a little bit faster than they're used to, going a new distance, a further distance, and that could take a toll on them, especially coming off a 2-month break where this horse had to scratch due to foot bruising. Number 4, Uncaged, just looks outclassed in this race. I'll be shocked if this horse runs any better than 3rd or 4th. Number 5, Crudeau, the other speed, again, I think is a total send. Send meaning just go to the front, try to outkick Rodriguez. If 3 or 5 don't break well and go to the lead and one of them gets alone on the lead, I think it could be trouble for any other horse trying to pass them when they can run a more moderate, more comfortable fraction and save their stamina throughout the entire race. Baza definitely looks like a contender, should be up close, should probably be just in front of Journalism early. Journalism's going to follow this horse around. This horse has shown good late kick, ran well in the Kentucky Derby, gets Frat aboard, who should be giving this horse a good trip. Lots to like about this horse, especially when we look at the Dam Puka, who's been a great producer in these races. So looks like the up-and-comer. A lot of money are probably going to be bet on Journalism, who's just on fire, and the Kentucky Derby winner. So maybe 4-1 on Baza is a good price if you're interested. Journalism, just an outstanding horse. The horse I'll be rooting for, just on fire, never really runs a bad race, overcomes lots of trouble. This horse is just as game as it comes, and again, just a horse I'll be rooting for. And Heart of Honor, a sneaky horse that I think could maybe get up for 3rd, probably more like 4th or 5th. Very curious to see how this one runs because it is 30-1, one of the longest shots in the race. And I think it did show a little flash of speed late in the Preakness at Pimlico. And if this horse can just get a little better start to the race and make its move a little bit earlier, I think it can improve second off the layoff after traveling to the United States for the first time. So just to wrap things up, my final thoughts. If one of the speed horses, the 3 or the 5, doesn't break well or challenge for the lead, I think whichever horse does get the lead could be a threat to set a moderate pace and go on to wire this field. It looks like both horses certainly want to go for the lead. I don't expect, you can't really plan on any horse not getting a good break. So in my head, I'm just imagining both of them dueling very fast, and Baza and Journalism right behind those two, maybe up to 5, 6, 7 lengths back if those horses really just go at an incredible pace early. If one of those horses doesn't break well and the other one gets somewhat of an easy lead, they could be hard to run down late. If number 7, Journalism, is a bit tired from his grueling campaign, again, this is his 3rd race in 5 weeks, doing a lot. He ran in the Kentucky Derby against 18 other horses. In the Preakness, he had a lot of bumping. You don't know what that does to a horse. Did it soften him up a little bit? He had to run really hard in both of those races. Horses nowadays don't run this often, but by all accounts, the horse is doing well according to the trainer. He looks good on the track. Everyone's oohing and awing about this horse and how he looks on the track. You got to trust the trainer's word that the horse is fit and ready to run. Could Baza be peaking for this race? A horse that is improving and has run with the likes of Journalism and ran a close 3rd in the Kentucky Derby, so is not far off of the top 2 contenders. Could this horse be improving while Journalism may be a little bit tired and Sovereignty is a little more reliant on a pace meltdown where all the horses in front of him get really tired? Will Sovereignty take to this track as well as he does at Churchill Downs? 2 of his wins have been at Churchill Downs, and again, the Kentucky Derby was in the sloppy weather. Did that help Sovereignty? Did that hurt journalism? Does he just like that track a lot more? Will the track be wet at Saratoga? I just looked at the weather, and it looks like they're going to get some rain early in the day, but will it be a sloppy track? That's yet to be determined. So look at how the track is playing early on Saturday, but it looks like it will have ceased raining by the time the Belmont Stakes comes around. The rain should have stopped by a couple hours, so I expect the track to be fast, relatively dry. Could the Peter Pan Stakes again serve as a key prep race for number 1 Hill Road? Again, if you look at my Belmont Stakes big race breakdown video, I talk about what horses have done very well in the Belmont Stakes, and a lot of horses coming out of the Peter Pan as well as the Kentucky Derby in their most recent race have performed very well historically in the Belmont Stakes. So does the timing just line up right for Hill Road? Might the track be really fast? Maybe Sovereignty has a bad break, takes back, and Hill Road gets the jump on Sovereignty. Get the jump, of course, meaning being in front of Sovereignty and making the move first, and Sovereignty having to run down Hill Road. But this horse could improve, and the Peter Pan, again, in the past has served as a good key prep race for the Belmont Stakes. And of course, my sleeper, number 8 Heart of Honor, be a surprise pick underneath. Maybe not win or even run second, but maybe fill out the trifecta or superfecta. Again, watch the Preakness. I think it came with some run. Again, this horse is so far back off the screen for most of the race, and then just came with a late run. I think a better timed race and by the jockey and a little bit further distance. Maybe this horse gets up and passes some other horses that are tiring. Not definitely a win contender on my part, but I will not be surprised if Heart of Honor does run a little bit better in the Belmont Stakes. So that's it for this video. I want to thank you everybody for watching. Again, I'll be rooting for journalism big time. Favorite horse, his Preakness is my favorite race I've ever seen live, so that's who I'm rooting for. If you like this video, feedback is appreciated, whether it's positive, negative, suggestions, or recommendations. Please let me hear it in the comments below. Also, who you like or where you think I'm right or where you think I'm wrong in any of my assessments. Please like, subscribe, and or share with friends. My target audience is for folks that are relatively new to the sport, so I try to explain things in a manner that helps them understand the game, try to get them involved with the game. I know everyone says that this game needs new blood and new fans, so I'm trying to explain things so that everyone can understand it a little bit better. For experienced horse players, at least maybe you gain a sense of how some of the common folks are looking at the racing form and what they're looking for and who they're giving high credence to, and maybe some of the horses they're fading, and you can be a contrarian or tag along, but gain some insight into what some of the other players are looking at and what they're thinking. If you know anyone who is new to the game and maybe wants to learn a little bit more, I have a couple of playlists. One is how to read a racing form. I've taken friends to the track before, and when I show them the racing form, they're a little put off. It looks a little daunting. They don't want to go through it. It looks like too much. They're just there to crush some hot dogs, so they just ask me who I like and they bet accordingly. But in my playlist, I break down each component of the racing form. Again, what seems so daunting into bite-sized pieces. Explain it in a very simply and matter-of-factly way. I think it's 10 videos, or a couple minutes each, and I just explain what everything's showing you, what it's telling you. Again, the racing form is there for the player to make an informed decision on who they like in a race, who they think can win. So it's important to learn how to read it to make better educated guesses. For those of you who know how to read a racing form but want to learn a little more about the betting side of things, I have a playlist, Betting on Horse Racing, where I go through each of the bets that a track typically offers. I just talk about what it is, how much it costs based on your ticket structure, how to structure those tickets, how much it costs based on the structure of your ticket, and some things that I look for before I place any such wager, and how I like to structure my tickets based on who I like in a given racing card. Next up is my pedigree playlist. I'm going to do a look at the horse Vekoma, because some of his runners have been hitting the track and running well, and I just want to see where they're excelling, when they're excelling, some of the surfaces and distances that his horses are excelling at. So unless otherwise requested, I'm going to start a new pedigree playlist. The pedigree is one area I know I need to brush up on. I want to learn a little bit more, and with all these new sires having their offspring running, I just want to get to know them before they become lower price odds, and just really gain a sense of, again, where they're performing well and when they can win first time out, which is usually when you can get some decent odds on some of the runners, because there's not a whole lot of information in the racing form for a horse that has never raced before. So that's probably what's up next, again, unless otherwise requested. That's it for this video. Thanks to everybody for watching. Please like, subscribe, share with friends. Good luck if you're playing the Belmont, and I'll see you next time.